Hi guys, I'm here today for a very spontaneous video that I never actually fully planned to make, but I thought it would be really fun. Because like I've been telling you, I really want to make more like language-centered videos, and I thought it would be fun to take a look at Korean language memes after learning the language for 5 years now? Almost 5 years. In a few months, it'll be 5 years. Basically, it's been a while, and I thought it would be really funny to take a look at these together, so I'm just out here on Google and I'll randomly be clicking stuff, and if I find it funny, we'll look at it. Or pretty easy to find the difference between the picture. They're the same picture. This was one of the toughest things at the very beginning for me. Like, it's definitely something I caught on to with time, but yeah, the difference between single and double consonants was definitely tricky, because there's nothing like that in English really, where letters vary more by like the intensity of the pronunciation as opposed to like an entirely different sort of sound. Also this plus the k sound, if you like compare them all, like you would say like ga, and ka, and that's all like different things. And my pronunciation obviously isn't perfect, I'm not a native speaker, but like to give you an idea that yeah, at first it's definitely tricky. Wish to learn the Korean language, verb conjugation, honorifics, markers. This is, yeah. Honestly, verb conjugation wasn't bad at all. Like, when I still remember to this day very specifically the moment where I first looked up a conjugation chart, and I looked at that and I was like, oh god. But honestly, like, I never learned it from a chart. I just listened, and then you kind of just automatically pick up on it, or at least in my case that's how it worked. Like, I had a much easier time just picking up on things through listening than trying to memorize like how exactly the rules work or anything like that. Like, there's only a few different conjugation forms, I guess. I mean, I guess, yeah, like if you only look at conjugation specifically, I don't think it's that bad. Of course, there's like a ton of different sentence endings that can also go on top of that, so you have to really learn like what the nuance of each one. But yeah, honorifics took me a bit, but there was like one moment in which it just all clicked. Another thing like I very specifically remember was I had a little bit of trouble figuring out like what exactly or how exactly to use honorifics in the right situations. And then I remember once I started taking, so like I self-studied for a couple years, and then I took a couple years of Korean at university, and I remember my first semester of taking it like in like an actual in-person class, my professor put up this one slide on the board and it just clicked like that, and I've never had a problem with it again after that moment. So yeah, a lot of this is like, I feel like I would relate a lot more to it towards the very beginning especially, but because it's been a few years now, like that's all kind of become okay and I don't struggle with it as much. But I do remember like that initial sort of, oh my god, how am I gonna ever figure this out? But then you do figure it out. And then markers, yeah, that one, I feel like even my Korean friends themselves have said that there's some kind of ambiguity with that, and it can be tricky to decide like which one flows more naturally in a certain sentence and things like that. But yeah, I mean, language. Learning Korean. Wow, learning Hangul is so easy. I can read so much already. Vocabulary pretty easy as well. Time to tackle grammar and speaking now. Yeah, for me, speaking has definitely been the trickiest. Grammar, again, is something that like I've caught on to with time just by listening to it so much that I kind of have an understanding of how to make it naturally flow, but with that being said, the speaking part is the hardest. Like, even if I know how to say something right, the odds of it coming out, like, easily of my mouth, very slim, because I don't get much speaking practice at all, so I feel this one. If you want to learn Korean, you have to study grammar. K-pop songs are filled with grammar. Song lyrics are confusing and cringy. You learn strange Korean. Do you speak about BTS and twice like that? If you keep avoiding grammar, you'll never be able to write them a fan letter. This is funny. Okay, so back in the end of 2016 was when I got into K-pop, and at that point it was through BTS, and I remember just initially like what I wanted to do was learn their song lyrics, and I quickly came to the conclusion that that was not a good strategy to start by trying to learn song lyrics. Like, you gotta like dissect the language first. At least for me, that's what works best, is learning things piece by piece, and then once you get a basis, things will start making sense to you and you'll be able to piece things together that you wouldn't have been able to before. And like, that's one of the most exciting and like thrilling feelings for me when learning a language, is that feeling of like, I didn't used to be able to understand this, but oh my god, it makes so much sense now because I learned this or that or something to make me finally understand. So yeah, like honestly, song lyric, like the grammar and everything in song lyrics definitely isn't very colloquial in terms of like things people would say in real life. It can be, of course, but a lot of times not so much. But learning like to actually use the more colloquial language will really help you understand what's in music as well. That's how I found that it really worked for me. When you spend months learning Korean from books, but nearly everyone in Korea speaks slang or dialect. That's another thing where I feel like you get the basis from the book and then the rest you figure out as you go. I am by no means an expert on dialect and slang and things like that, but I've definitely learned more and more of it as I keep watching different people and the way they talk. And honestly, sometimes certain like slang or dialect words are just kind of intuitive, like you can figure out what they mean even if you don't 100% like know, if you didn't like directly learn it from a textbook or something. Sometimes you'll just be able to like pick up on it from context or that sort of thing. But yeah, there's definitely a lot of things that like if people said in a specific dialect, I would have no idea what they're talking about. So yeah, I would say like having a basis understanding of the way the language works will definitely help you figure out those sorts of things. But even with that being said, I think because the Seoul dialect is the one that's most commonly used in the media, I think everyone is at least familiar with it, and if you really had to communicate with someone who speaks a particular dialect, I don't think that you would have that much harder of a time because they would get you, and if you had a question about what they're saying, like you could just ask them and they would probably be happy to explain it to you if there's something you don't understand. But I do see like just if you're just trying to like watch people online and there's something you don't get, then yeah, it's a little frustrating. But that's what Google's for. Google is a very frequent friend of mine, especially Naver Dictionary. I live on that thing every day. Translate this sentence. Cats are not food. Yeah, it really teaches you some very useful things. We love the language apps. I want to learn Korean to talk to my biases and laugh with them on feeling because of language and culture are interesting. Honestly, I don't entirely relate to this one. Like, yes, I will say that K-pop was like probably the initial biggest inspiration of why I started learning Korean, but I'm really not the type of person to do a whole lot of like direct interacting with idols. Like, I like watching them a lot and like I'll consume their content and everything, and I do definitely get invested in that sense, but like I'm not the type of person who's like, oh, I need to learn the language so I can talk to them and like write them fan letters and all these things. Like, I don't know, I just really fell into an interest of the language itself. Like, I don't even know what the purpose is of me knowing. I guess besides watching videos, and I just find it like personally fulfilling and satisfying, I guess. I don't know. But I feel like me learning Korean turned more into like a personal hobby than something that I'm doing because like there's a particular person that I want to be able to talk to, or, you know. It definitely has helped me like understand much better like the exact nuances of what people are saying though, because translation like usually is pretty good, but sometimes it just doesn't quite, like translations don't quite carry that same exact nuance or sentiment that they were originally going for, and so understanding the language has definitely helped me a lot in that aspect as well. But yeah, I did definitely start consuming like a lot more outside of just K-pop, and the language and culture itself definitely did become like a big interest of mine, and yeah, so I like somewhat relate to this. Honestly, it almost became like second nature for me to like continue learning the language. I don't even at this point, like I don't think about it all, like why am I learning it or anything like that. I just kind of do it because like I've been doing it for so long, and like I watch videos in Korean every day, so like I'm just naturally constantly picking up on more, and I very rarely stop to think like, oh, what am I gonna do with this? Like, it'd be nice to do something with it, but it really is kind of just for, I don't know, it just became a part of my life to learn the language. I don't know how better to put it, really. Okay, should we top it off here for today? I feel like that honestly went down a different path than I was expecting. Like, I was thinking more along the lines of, like, actual memes using the language itself and, like, funny linguistic things and, you know, things like that, but it turned more into, like, the struggle of learning Korean and a whole discussion about that. Yeah, I was really expecting more of, like, a funny video than a whole discussion, but yeah, we got what we got today, and maybe I'll try to like look for some specific ones just to share with you guys that I think are funny, even if it's not like my initial reaction. I think just, you know, looking at some of them might be fun. But yes, alrighty, thank you guys so much for watching. If you'd like to check out any of my other links, they'll be in the description box down below, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye everyone.